to serve the moment can be draining if I am attached to the outcome of my service. If I need this person to agree with me, if I need to win this person over, I'm already in trouble. If I have any attachment other than to just show up lovingly and with presence to serve the moment, then that attachment is going to come back and it's going to influence my tone, my delivery, my effectiveness. And guess who's going to become drained through this process? Me. So I'm serving the moment, but I have to also understand from an ego standpoint, okay, Tommy, if you really want to serve the moment, don't become attached to your effort in service. When the person comes back again and again and again and again, there may be a point where I have to say, okay, I think we've had a good conversation to this point, and I'd like you to consider the things that I've said. I have to watch out for my tendency to rehash and reiterate over and over again a point that I made clearly that a person may or may not be ready to hear at that point in time. Their success, their failure, their life, their death, all of it is completely and squarely out of my sphere of influence. I can only show up. I can't be responsible for the outcome. I can do the best that I possibly can. Welcome to In the Circle. Today, I am sitting in front of 4 radiant human beings who have come with inquiries, puzzle pieces, inquiries into the puzzle pieces of the human experience. And I'm always amazed when someone comes to me and says, you know, Tommy, I've been listening to your podcast, and do you realize this podcast isn't just for people who identify as having struggled with an addiction or not? That this is actually for any human being, because we're all facing these issues that we look at, these inquiries that anybody brings up in the circle are relevant for all human beings. And I like to ask that everybody who listens to this or comes to this is in the spirit of curiosity. And it really is under the heading of take what works and leave the rest. We're all trying to do, I think, generally speaking, the same thing. We would like to feel happy and joyous and free. And we would like to serve others and serve the moment and serve the greater possibility that others can also experience this happiness and joyousness and freedom that we're all seeking. So that's the effort here. So we come with curiosity, and the people that come to ask questions that we get to work with and explore are brave and vulnerable and honest and earnest and curious. And they do everybody a service. There are no bad questions. There are no bad inquiries. There are only inquiries. We're looking. And so today, with this in mind, we come together to explore. So which one of you radiant souls would like to begin today? Okay, I see Mariana.
Hi, Tommy. Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking my question, and I'm just so thrilled to be here. Really, my question is about boundaries, and how do we set boundaries around giving when the other person always takes? And I'd like to give you a little bit of a background to that question. You know, we read in all the spiritual scriptures that we're supposed to give without expecting anything in return, and we're supposed to give of ourselves and give, and again, you know, without expecting anything. And this question kind of came up. I go to an ashram locally in the States several times a year, and you know, when I'm there and I do service and I wash dishes, or I'm working on the farm, or I work in the kitchen, I'm doing service and I don't expect anything in return. But then when I go back to a real world, and you know, and there's sometimes there's an imbalance in the relationships on how much you give and how much you receive. And I've been sober for a year and 10 months, 2 years and 10 months. And of course, after I became sober, the first thing that came up was my issues with relationships and my issues with codependency and my issues with, giving and the things behind giving. So that is the question in my mind of, how much truly is too much giving. And we asked one of the swamis at the ashram, that question, and her answer was, God doesn't have limits about giving, and you just give. And I understand that from a scripture perspective. I understand that philosophically. I understand that intellectually, but I feel that when it comes to, we live in these bodies and we're in relations, and I think that there's a lot more nuance than that. And I'm just curious, what your thoughts are about that.
Wonderful.
So, thank you.
Wonderful. So I just want to repeat back what I heard, and then we'll dive in. So I'm hearing an inquiry about boundaries. Mm-hmm. I'm hearing an inquiry about how to be giving, how to serve in ways that are appropriate, how to set boundaries when one feels that they're giving more than maybe they are receiving from another person, or maybe they're in the energy of people who are takers rather than givers. And so we'll jump in and we'll explore this concept. And we'll also explore along the way the concept of being of service in general and what that means. I'm going to just dive right in here, and then I'll ask for some feedback from you in a little bit, if that's okay. Okay. When we come into recovery, for example, from a state of addiction, we enter this new path, and we're calling this new path recovery. We're surrounded, if we put ourselves into, like, for example, 12-step meetings or different recovery meetings, we're in a new vibration, a new energy, a new culture. And in this culture, we see people showing up for meetings. Often we'll remark that we see the same faces multiple days in a row, or we go to meetings and we see people showing up, and people are engaged in an effort. If it's a meeting where people are focused on releasing some substance from their life, or alcohol, drugs, or whatever the addictive behavior might have been, people are in this common effort to let go of something on the one hand, but also to build a life of meaning and purpose. And one of the things that we're told from the very beginning, and it's not just in recovery circles, but it's in any spiritual path, religious path, we're told the value of community and the value of service. The value of service. So perhaps the best way to go about this inquiry is to explore what it means to be of service. And then we'll look at boundaries from there. When we serve, in the greater sense of that term, it's not something that we decide to do at a particular point any given day. So today it's, as we are speaking to each other, it's Thursday. Today I'm going to be at service. I'm going to be of service from, say, 10:30 to 11:30 this morning. I've decided to be of service. And I think what we mean when we say something like that is I'm doing something that hopefully will benefit somebody else. I think we think about that when we say, I'm going to be of service. Another way of looking at service, though, is to look at all of life as an opportunity to serve. Now, in your question about boundaries, when I say looking at your entire life as an opportunity to serve, you might think, oh my God, what am I getting myself into here? That doesn't sound like very much of a boundary, Tommy. In fact, looking at my entire life as an opportunity to serve can feel very overwhelming. And for a person who struggles like me, who struggles with codependency and struggling with boundaries, the very idea of using life as an opportunity to serve can be overwhelming and off-putting. And yet, in that orientation of I desire to be of service in life, what I mean by that, I want to use my life as an opportunity to serve. What I'm serving is the present moment, the need of the present moment. I could decide right now to go down to downtown Los Angeles, where I know there are encampments of people who do not have homes, who are living in abject conditions. And I could say, I'm going to go down and go shake some hands, and I'm going to bring some fruit and vegetables. Maybe I'll set up a little smoothie stand and give away some smoothies in downtown Los Angeles. I can do that. And the reason that I would do that is because in my heart and in my mind, a desire arose to be of service in that way. That the present moment was asking me to show up in downtown Los Angeles and to do this thing. Okay, so I go down and I do this thing. If I have a lifestyle which allows me that kind of freedom, if I have the ability to think of, okay, let me set up a table down there, let me get a van together, let me get some people together, let's go down there and do that. This might be something that I want to be doing. That might be fun. It's, by the way, not a bad idea. It's kind of a fun idea. But my point is that the way that you serve, the way that anyone serves, is they connect first with their own presence, their own heart, their own desire. They put their feet squarely on the ground. They calm their mind through meditative practices, through the practices of being in recovery, meaning abstinent from drugs and alcohol, but not just abstinent, but being in the process of awakening and being present. So when I talk about service, I'm thinking about how can I serve the present moment? Very important story. When I was first getting sober, and it was suggested to me, if you can be of service to people, it will really help you get out of your own head. People would say, my sponsor would say to me, just take a look at this guy. And there was this guy in a meeting. And this guy was like the poster child of service. This guy had sponsored, I don't know, maybe literally taken a couple thousand young men and men through the steps, had helped people heal their lives for 40 years. And he was older older than me at the time. He's probably my age now. But this guy was like, he had just dedicated his life to taking people through the steps. And that's what he wanted to do. And it was relevant for him. It was right for him. And I think the suggestion was, be like this guy. Now, this guy was in a really, really, really unhealthy body. Really, really unhealthy. And it was obvious that he hadn't dealt with certain things in his life. His relationship with food was a big, big problem, and he had a lot of health issues. But God bless this man. He dedicated himself to helping other people. And it really was, you could see, like, this is this guy's life, and it's how he's chosen to be, and it works for him, and it's beautiful. And to be honest with you, when my sponsor said, be like this guy, I knew deep inside myself that I didn't want to be. There was a pushback. I'm just being honest now. I didn't want to be this guy. I didn't want to live his lifestyle. I didn't feel the calling to be of service in the way that he was being of service. And I felt guilty. I was aware enough to catch these feelings and these thoughts, and I felt guilty about feeling this way. Wow, I don't want to be like this person. And so there was a conflict within me. Later on, I would be with very wise counsel. And this teacher would suggest to me, Tommy, you're not supposed to be of service like somebody else. You're supposed to be in service in a way that's appropriate for you. in a way that is energizing for you, in a way that is not depleting. It excites you. You get to be in service like that. I cannot in this life be Mother Teresa. I'm not called to go into the slums of any city and work there. That's not that that's bad work or that there's not work needed there. It's not what I'm called to do. I have to understand me, my limits, my desires. And my heartfelt desire is to plug into the world in a meaningful way. I'm going to have boundary issues immediately when I'm plugging into the world in a way that's inappropriate for me. If I try to be Mother Teresa, if I try to be somebody else, it's not that they didn't set amazing examples of service and dedication and devotion. What I need to take from Mother Teresa is her love, her kindness, her devotion, her faith, and love, kindness, devotion, and faith. You know what is the result of those things in your life? Boundless energy. You never get tired. You don't become depleted. From the outside, somebody in 12-step recovery could look at Mother Teresa and say, "Oh my God, most unbelievable codependent I ever could imagine. Wow, she really gave up herself, and where was her interest in her? Where was her self-care in all this?" And of course, that's a ridiculous perspective. Her effort was to connect with and serve God. And this was the way that God spoke to her and told her what to do. And she listened, and the channel was wide open. Serve in these ways. Serve in these ways. And other people could say, "Wow, you're really, you're over. Hey, back off a minute. Hey, why don't you rest?" What does downtime look like for someone like Mother Teresa? So you see, a big part of this inquiry about boundary and about serving is about knowing yourself and starting to serve in ways that thrill your heart and your spirit. So when I first got sober, I wasn't thinking like this. When I first got sober, the level that I was thinking at, and many people will relate to this as people on a path of recovery, all I could think of was, please make it stop. Please stop the pain. My psychic pain is overwhelming. How can I live without drugs and alcohol? The cacophony in my head is so great. I can't seem to get past it. And when you're operating at that level, at that frequency, it's going to be impossible for you at that moment to be of very much service to too many people, right? But what you can do, and what we were told to do in 12-step recovery, was on even the second day, my sponsor would say, how sober are you now? And maybe I was, I'm 20 days sober. And he's like, well, go over there and put your hand out to that guy over there, because he's not 20 days sober. And you're an example of victory to this guy, of someone who could make it to 20 days sober, because that guy right now is at the bottom. Can you do that, Tommy? Can you do that, Tommy? Yes. I might not even want to at that point, because I'm still caught up in my own head. But you know what? I walked over to that person, put my hand out, and could see that person's pain, and I could relate to their pain and know how close I was to their pain. And I could say to that person, welcome. I'm 20 days sober, and, come sit next to me. Now, I would ask you or anybody, could there be a greater example of service than that? That's me serving the moment. Not because I'm some great Mother Teresa character, but because I've been humbled and humiliated in my addiction. I've been laid low. And the nonsense of me being above or beneath anybody else has been stripped away And I've been put into this very interesting, weird playground of people who also have been through this problem, and they're coming back from it, and they're having various degrees of success. And we're all being told, someone will help you, and you have to help somebody else too. And so that's serving the moment. None of us chose to serve the moment in that way. Isn't that interesting? That wasn't like, I'm sitting there at 8 years old. What would you like to be when you grow up? I'd like to serve the moment in an AA meeting. That wasn't like what I planned. And that shows me something else that's going on. There's a plan happening. I can participate in it. It's a grand, mystical, magical, beautiful plan. It isn't necessarily what I thought I wanted. I didn't have the power to construct it myself. I'm only one player in a much, much greater plan that involves basically everything and everybody. And I can choose to align with the plan and go along with it. And in that moment, when I align with the plan, or even try to, even your inquiry here, this is such a beautiful inquiry because you're basically saying, I want to serve. I see the value. I want to be free. I'd like to contribute to other people's freedom. Gorgeous. What a beautiful inquiry. So just that desire is saying, I want to align with the greater plan, and I want to go along with it, and I want to plug in. How do you want to plug in? In the unique way that you can plug in. Now, sometimes I will show up in service to the moment. And in that moment, let's say there's someone in front of me who's having a very difficult time. Let's say they're in a phase of their life where they feel very much a victim. When people feel like they're a victim, they're in that victim energy. It's very draining. Maybe you've noticed. And by the way, I've been a victim. Like I've been in that victim energy and I've drained other people, not purposely, but because I couldn't help it. And so now when I show up sometimes and people are in that victim energy, I'm like, okay, I know what this is. I'm trying to serve the moment. And let me help this person only because they've asked me. I'm not injecting myself into someone else's deal. They've asked me, and so I'm serving the moment. To serve the moment, in some cases, can be draining if I am attached to the outcome of my service. If I need this person to agree with me, I'm already in trouble. If I need to win this person over, I'm already in trouble. If I have any attachment other than to just show up lovingly and with presence to serve the moment, then that attachment is going to come back and it's going to influence my tone, my delivery, my effectiveness. And guess who's going to become drained through this process? Me. So I'm serving the moment, but I have to also understand from an ego standpoint, okay, Tommy, if you really want to serve the moment, don't become attached to your effort in service. So somebody comes with this victim energy and I speak to them and I say something like, look, what I'm experiencing from you is a sense of not having a way out or being powerless. And I know from being powerless myself or feeling powerless that can be a very frustrating feeling. When I feel powerless, I tend to blame other people for it because who's responsible for this? I have to blame somebody. And I complain a lot. I say that to the other person. I'm not pinning it on them. I'm saying when I feel powerless, I blame and I complain a lot. And I notice that when I do that, it drives people away from me and it perpetuates my own feeling of loneliness and stress and worry and all of this. So I'm through my own experience. I'm trying to serve the moment and sharing with this person. And sometimes the person will say, that really makes sense to me. And I'm like, okay, that's good. I'm on the right track. Okay, this is a good thing. And what is my goal? To serve the moment. What's my agenda for this person? Same as my agenda for myself. Freedom in this moment. If I see something that a person is doing that's harmful to them, and they ask me about it, of course I want to point out, okay, I see something that I've done before myself. I have experience around this. This doesn't serve. And you'll need to move beyond this behavior if you want to be free in this life. At that point, I've delivered the message. And they might say, well, how were you able to move beyond it? Okay, then I can move to the next place. Now, I don't find that to be a draining thing. When the person comes back again and again and again and again, there may be a point where I have to say, okay, I think we've had a good conversation to this point, and I'd like you to consider the things that I've said. I have to watch out for my tendency to rehash and reiterate over and over again a point that I made clearly that a person may or may not be ready to hear at that point in time. I can look at it as a seed that's been planted for another time. That person's journey, their bottom, their success, their failure, their life, their death, all of it is completely and squarely out of my sphere of influence. I can only show up. I can't be responsible for the outcome. I can do the best that I possibly can. I'm serving the moment. How do I know that? Because somebody reached out to me and said, could you help me? And if I can, I will try to. And I don't find it draining unless I'm attached. And when I become attached to the outcome, in my inside, it feels like, why are you not listening to me? Why are you not getting this point? Hey, I said this already to you. That's my internal dialogue. I start to feel frustrated. Why? I'm attached. What am I attached to? Being effective as a teacher? Or I'm attached to just this person getting a message? Or I'm attached to feeling like if this person doesn't get this, then it drives a wedge between us? Or another million things I could come up with that make it unpleasant for me to just deliver a kind, compassionate message to somebody and let go of whether they can hear it or not. So we're talking about boundary here also. Now, sometimes somebody will come to me with anger or meanness or spitefulness or manipulative or dishonesty. And I have the opportunity to say, I'm not available. Not because I'm mean or cold-hearted, but because that energy doesn't feel good or safe for me to engage with. You always have the chance and the opportunity to choose to try to help someone who asks you, or to realize this person is not coming with the right energy. They're not coming to learn. They're coming to blame. They're coming to find somebody to hold responsible for their pain, and they're unwilling to look beyond that. You can always step away from that. People often ask me about Recovery 2.0. Tommy, what's the difference between Recovery 1.0 and 2.0? And that's a good question. And I say, Recovery 2.0 is really just, it's all of recovery. But it's really for the people who want to lay down their blame and lay down their complaint, and who want to take responsibility for their life at every level. Mainly because it empowers them in life, and it gives them a great opportunity to learn and to grow and to really be successful. And by successful, I mean happy, joyous, and free. That's the Recovery 2.0 piece. And so I tell people, I'm not in the business of persuading. I'm not in the business of convincing. There has to be an openness when someone asks for help. If there's not a humility, it won't matter. So I don't, by design, I don't work with people who are in active addiction who don't want to change their behavior. Not because I'm not wanting them to find freedom, but because it's just not the area where I do the work that I do. The work that I do really begins when a person is open to new ideas and suggestions and new ways of being, and they have the energy available to actually pursue something new. So that's a boundary for me. If you really, really don't want to change and all you want to do is argue, I'm not your person. If somebody wants to be convinced of the importance of stopping drinking or why they should stop, if it hasn't occurred to them, I'm not your guy. Especially with some of the eating disorders. I call that particular pathology, I call that out here because that's one of the most difficult places to talk to folks who are not ready to change. And I've seen some people who are, for example, I've encountered in my life a few people who were severely anorexic. When I say severe, I mean they were dying and they were skeletal, and they weren't able to see it. I mean, not at all. And I have nothing but the most unbelievable compassion, and I don't know, wow, what to say and what to do. It's beyond me how to help in certain cases. But in trying to sort of communicate with, I'm thinking of a couple people in particular, I found that it was impossible. All they wanted to do was fight. And I had to accept, I can't save these people. I want to, but I don't have it. And so just to try to be kind and compassionate, gently honest, and then let go. We're not responsible for somebody's recovery. As much as sometimes, especially if you're very close with somebody, like a parent of a child or a child of a parent, you feel like you are responsible for their recovery. And it's not true. So these are some explorations into boundary, into the concept of service. I truly believe that we want to work a meditative practice so that we can calm the mind, become more intuitive, become more effective and more skillful, so that we can go out into the world and serve the moment in better and better, more and more authentic and powerful ways. The idea is not to serve under any condition, because if you're serving in a way that's depleting to you, you're not serving you. And there is a codependency to that. And you're part of God also. And so there's a way to be in harmony with self and other, and to serve the moment in a way that is helpful and energizing. Like a candle that lights another candle, but itself is not depleted. That candle can light infinite candles without being depleted itself. We want to be that candle. We want to be that light, and not give up our power or give up our authenticity in the name of service. One final thing I want to say on this has to do with the financial side of this, money. Often people want to give money to those in need, which is a beautiful thing. And of course, it depends on the circumstances. And that's individual, and each person has to decide if they're going to give in a financial way to someone and if that's appropriate. Sometimes, however, people will give from a place of unstable finances. They'll give from a place of lack. And it doesn't go well. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't give a little bit when you can. You shouldn't necessarily wait till you're wealthy before you start giving. You should give. But to give in a way that compromises your own economic sustainability is, in my opinion, inappropriate. And it ends up hurting you or putting you in a position to be hurt. So energetically, it's the same thing. Give from a place of wholeness. Give from a place of authenticity. Give when you can give. If you've got the flu or you're sick or you're tired or you need to lay low for a minute, that might not be the moment. You might need to give something to yourself called rest and relaxation. So there's a give and a take. You are not separate from these other people that you're helping. So the dynamic between all of you, it has to serve the whole, or there will be a depletion. So that's my exploration of this inquiry. I'd love to hear what comes up for you in hearing it.
Gosh, thank you, Tommy. I love the analogy of the light, the candle that, you continue lighting other candles and it doesn't deplete you. And I think what the most came up for me was serve the need of the moment. And sometimes the need of the moment is serve my need because I'm sick, because I'm lonely. And also the concept of attachment. And when I'm giving, how truly attached I am to the outcome. And I think,
Yes.
When I give the example of working at the farm in the ashram or working in the kitchen, washing the dishes, which is my all-time favorite thing to do, just like how nourishing and how energizing that is. And I have no attachment. My only attachment is to clean dishes. That's my only attachment, and that sometimes when I'm giving, I am a little attached to how the other person is going to respond. So it gives me a lot of, your response gives me a lot of opportunity to look when I'm giving, to look and see what is behind, if it is the need of the moment or is something that in my mind I need to do because there's other reason behind. So that's kind of what's coming up for me. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It is such a powerful inquiry, and I'm so grateful that you brought it to In the Circle today. Thank you.